criminals around the world are becoming more extreme. The response and how Canada today gets its man on tonight's Police Camera Action.
Between lanes 2 and 3. You take 120 miles an hour. 86, keep coming, keep coming. 230 southbound.
In tonight's programme, the baby at the centre of an armed standoff. What happens when this man tangles with an elite SWAT team? And I discover at first hand how the Canadian police get their man. In North America, the police routinely face armed criminals. In Britain, it's still an uncommon experience, especially when you're trying to stop the red car up ahead for failing to display a tax disc. It's a routine task, which is about to turn into a life-threatening nightmare, seen for the first time on television.
Bells. Get back. Been shot at. A312. B9. Don't go forward. Pursue.
The man has opened fire out of his car window with an automatic pistol.
Shot by an automatic handgun. Vauxhall Road towards the A316. It's a red Vauxhall Cavalier.
The unarmed officers follow training and wisely keep their distance. But worse is to follow, as the gunman calmly stops his car in the middle of the road and takes aim with a high-powered automatic assault rifle.
Don't get too close. She's reloading now. Machine gun.
The unit with the vehicle pursuit.
Oscar, this shooting at us with an AK-47 where Winslow Way, Junction, Hounslow Road, back towards the 316.
Winslow Road, Hounslow, towards the A316. All units wait.
Oscar, he's shot all our tyres out. He's got a machine gun back towards the 316.
Call sign, please.
Oscar Tango 2-3. We've had all our tyres shot out by this with a machine gun. He's just gone under the 316.
Their patrol car disabled, the two officers abandon the pursuit, perhaps with some relief.
AK-47 as well. We got all the front of the Ranger have been shot at. He's wearing a baseball cap, brown jacket, and sunglasses.
This calm description enabled Scotland Yard's armed unit to arrest the gunman at his home, where they found an arsenal of weapons, including machine guns, pistols, and grenades. He later received 9 life sentences after a trial at the Old Bailey. For the police, it had been a life-or-death experience. They were lucky to survive.
Kept me a change of underwear.
In Canada, armed incidents are more commonplace, but the police still take no chances. I trained with the unit that's at the centre of a crackdown on gun culture.
Deliberately dressed to look intimidating, the Emergency Task Force is Toronto's tough answer to the city's serious criminals. And I'm about to find out what it's like to be on the wrong side of the law.
Driver, stay in the car! Put your hands on top of your head. With your left hand, open the driver's door and remain in the car. Keep your hands on top of your head and step out of the car. Keep your hands on top of your head, look up. Start walking backwards.
This is actually genuinely frightening, although I know it's totally controlled and the guy shouting the orders knows just what he's doing. And that's because these guys, in reality, have to deal with 400 critical incidents, as they call them, every year, from hostage-taking to armed robberies.
Cuff man, take over.
Stop. Cuffs out. Back to the sound of my voice. Do it now. Coming. In. And down. Round.
The body search establishes that I don't have a weapon, but these officers are also trained to deal with criminals who unexpectedly turn out to be armed.
Threatening police with his weapon in the middle of a public car park, this young man is at the centre of a high-tech armed standoff.
I'm not going to hurt you. Nobody wants to hurt you. Come on out.
In Arizona, police risk robots rather than people in the firing line.
Down. Good job.
Immobilizing the car with a wheel clamp, the robot activates its two small video cameras. These provide vital pictures to the negotiator, trying to bring the armed standoff in Arizona to a peaceful conclusion from a safe distance.
Watch out, Alex. Don't do that. Alex.
Behind him, a score of tense and heavily armed officers from the Tucson SWAT team.
Come on out, bro. Come on out. Shut the door. There you go. I'm here to help you, okay? There you go. Show me your jacket. Open your jacket. But no, don't do that, Alex. Alex.
But the gunman ignores the warning and the team opens fire, knocking him to the ground.
Get your hands out and see him! Hands out!
Fortunately for him, it was a hail of beanbags that hit him, a first call tactic that ensured no one was killed.
Let me get you, come on over here. Let's get off the side of the road, out of the way of that traffic there, so neither one of us get run over.
And sensible police procedures are about to save the life of the young woman stopped for speeding by this far-sighted Texas
Come on
patrolman.
over here, man. If you're up here and anybody hits the back of my patrol car, it's a good chance you're gonna get caught somewhere in between that car and your car. And if you're not caught in between, you may still get struck by one of the vehicles. I don't want that to happen to you. Just like that, see? Just like that. Just like that, see? Just like that.
Despite the severity of the crash, no one suffered long-term injuries. The woman was let off the speeding ticket.
Good evening. Have you been all drink tonight? No.
All of the cars in this line behind me face the possibility of a random check to see if they're fit to drive and if their vehicle is roadworthy. It's all part of a radical program to improve road safety. And far from annoying the motorists of British Columbia, it's surprisingly popular.
I think it's a good idea, yes.
It's a heck of a good idea.
Keeps everybody honest.
It makes them worried that they might hit a roadblock on the way home.
It's a risky business trying to avoid the checks because anyone caught doing a U-turn faces a stiff penalty. And it's Ken's job here to catch them. But there are shrewd economics behind the blocks funded by the government's compulsory car insurance. For every dollar spent mounting the blocks, $4 are saved in accident claims.
Which is just as well, as there are plenty of faulty cars on Canadian freeways, as well as faulty drivers. These pictures from the Ontario Ministry of Transport show just how inattentive motorists can be, with some simply failing to look at the road ahead. In Britain, police believe they've stopped this disqualified driver, but he speeds off with a quick U-turn over the central reservation of the Oxford Ring Road. On board the powerful BMW are two youths who think they have a fair chance of outrunning the law. Despite accelerating to over 100 miles an hour, they're hampered by slow-moving traffic. On their tail and shadowing their every move, the two Thames Valley officers are determined to get their man and wait for the two fugitives to make a mistake. Careering down a small road, it seems the youth's local knowledge may allow them to escape. But actually, their knowledge is as bad as their driving, and they smash into a railway tunnel. The driver, charged with a string of motoring offences, was later jailed for 9 months.
I'm in the forensic bay at the headquarters of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in North Vancouver. This 4x4's been stolen in a robbery of computer equipment. Now, they've already established that there are no easy clues, no fingerprints on the door panels or on the windows. But what about inside? Could that yield any evidence? What about a fleece left on the back of the driver's seat? Could that be helpful? Discarded box of beer cans? What about that? And here, a whole bag of printed circuit boards. Could the plastic bag yield vital evidence? Well, upstairs in the forensic laboratories, they have an array of equipment to help the modern-day Mountie get his man. This chamber, for example, has coated the plastic bag that had the computer parts in superglue, and that traps the telltale fluid of a fingerprint. The bag is then soaked in fluorescent fluid, then washed off here, and then hung up to dry. But it's when the lights are turned off that the forensic magic really kicks in. Under ultraviolet light, the see-through plastic bag suddenly yields a mass of fingerprint evidence. Also, the fleece under UV obviously shows up all of the little specks, but here, stains that could not be seen in natural light. Even the cardboard box of beer, been treated with zinc and gold, becomes an absolute mass of fingerprints. So, gone are the days of funny hats, red coats and riding boots. Today's Mounties use high-tech equipment to catch the country's criminals.
Tango tell 911 we have the video.
Similar high-tech science helps police identify the driver of this stolen car, which has just sped past them.
And it's a left onto Walton Street.
Narrowly missing a stinger device which would have punctured his tyres, the driver has no thought of stopping.
Yes.
Racing at high speed down residential roads in Hull, he careers through a red light.
Straight through the junction on red into Wallaby Street.
With the speeds of both cars reaching over 50 miles an hour, the determined car criminal hurtles over a series of speed bumps and then makes a death-defying move, turning onto the main Doncaster to Hull railway line.
Onto the railway lines. Nowhere.
Sensibly, the officers refused to follow. The car was later recovered and the driver identified by a special fingerprinting technique.
I'm not going with that, mate.
As part of a crackdown on car crime, undercover Canadian Mounties have set up a stakeout in a car park.
They're going. They're all getting in right now.
The camera follows a gang of 4 as they coolly break into a people carrier. It's time to pounce. Violently braking and accelerating, the driver tries to throw off a female officer clinging to his passenger. But she still attempts her arrest.
You're all under arrest!
Don't move! Get on the radio!
But the gang have no respect for the law and scatter. They're all cornered at a nearby timber yard, and Constable Shirley Hall finally gets her man.
You're under arrest for excessive auto. You have the right to retain and still comes without delay.
Desperately pursuing a stolen pickup truck are a dozen Canadian officers. They want to arrest the driver who's just tried to knife a security guard. Snow and ice cover the highway, and the police are having trouble staying in control. But so's the knife man as he weaves down the hard shoulder. The police are determined not to give him an easy time and refuse to make way. It's all too much for the fleeing criminal. He loses control, slides across the carriageway and smashes into the crash barrier. Swiftly moving in, one patrol car blocks any quick escape, but the driver still tries to climb over the barrier. He's rapidly subdued and is later charged with a string of offences, including assault with a weapon, escaping lawful custody and dangerous driving. Coming up in part 2, the callous intent of this fleeing criminal. We reveal the dangers of driving on the motorway and attempting to flee drunken style.
Marks, get set.
Fast, furious, and frenetic. Whitewater rafting down a surging river like this is not only exhilarating, it's actually quite frightening. The rate at which this river is flowing and the speed at which this raft is crashing through the waves is like nothing as compared to the speeds that some people attempt out on the open roads.
And even wet roads don't slow some people. Tracked first on their rear-facing video, Cleveland Traffic Police then speed-checked the reckless motorist using their front camera. Amazingly, despite the atrocious conditions, the Vauxhall is travelling at over 100 miles an hour, recorded in the bottom left of the screen. Swiftly stopped, the driver is brought to book for his stupidity. And stupid is the best word to describe the antics of the driver in the Blue Sierra, speeding only feet away from the tail of the car in front. The undercover police car moves into the middle lane to gather more evidence of the motorist's mad manoeuvres. Unconcerned, the driver actually narrows the gap. Sudden braking at this speed would probably be fatal. As the Sierra moves to undertake, he's pulled by the officers and charged with driving without due care. Also driving dangerously is the man behind the wheel of the white Citroën. Northern officers have already clocked his speed at nearly 100 miles an hour, shown in the bottom right. Now they have to stop him in a safe place. Ignoring the road hatchings on the busy Highland Road, the driver is determined to carry on leapfrogging the cars ahead. He seems determined to get to the front of the queue, but he's balked by a slower lorry. He carries on overtaking and only just pulls in before missing an oncoming car. In quieter traffic, he's stopped and charged with speeding. Speeding towards the Mexican border in the turquoise car is a long-distance fugitive who's wanted for a burglary in Los Angeles. He's been pursued for 150 miles and amazingly has put his one-year-old son in the car as insurance. Stopped at the customs post, he's surrounded by armed police. They think they've trapped him, but the desperate burglar makes a last-ditch effort to avoid arrest and clambers into the back seat to hide behind the innocent child. New negotiations persuade the criminal back out of the car, and he walks a short distance toward the frontier. Suddenly, he throws his son away and runs across the border where he's wrestled to the ground by local customs officials. The baby is safe. After 4 hours, the man was handed back by the Mexican authorities and sent to jail for 6.5 years. Thinking it's a routine stop, this Canadian Mountie has to run for his car when the driver of the yellow pickup fails to stop. And then just when the constable thinks he's got the fleeing driver cornered, the man escapes again, forcing the officer to call for backup. Soon help is at hand, and the constable's colleague in the blue car takes a firm line in halting the fleeing driver and forces him off the road. The motorist turns out to be a drunk driver, a common problem that the Canadian government is trying to stamp out.
Drink driving kills 5 people every day in Canada. It's a huge country, and of course people are utterly dependent upon their cars. But the police estimate that 4.5 million journeys every month are undertaken by people who've had too much to drink.
Graphically illustrated by an Ontario patrolman on the King's Highway near Barrie.
Now he's touched the shoulder once already, either fallen asleep or impaired. Holy this guy ever bad.
But some drink drive offenders can have their ban reduced if they're prepared to have one of these breath test machines fitted to their car. You have to pass the test to start the car.
A special electronic safety system means only your breath can get you on the road.
And that's okay. And if you think you can just start the engine up and keep the motor running while you go and have your drinks, then you're in for a big surprise, because this machine issues random tests. And there it goes. I've now got 3 minutes in which to take and pass a test, otherwise all hell will break loose. Now, just to make sure that that happens, we've actually dipped this mouthpiece in alcohol. And it says, pull over. This machine has reduced repeat drink drive offences by an amazing 75%.
It's a system that's now being considered by the British government to tackle repeat offenders like the banned transit van driver. A bed of nails blocks his flight, and seconds later, another. The devices soon take effect. The van's punctured tyre glows white on the thermal image camera as it deflates. Drunk again, the driver is soon arrested and was further banned and fined for his actions. In Canada, another drunk driver is also being pursued. In his confused state, he doesn't know whether to give up or flee. But on his tail is another dedicated patrolman, determined to get his man. And as the motorist tries a U-turn, he pushes him off the road and into a ditch. Still protesting his innocence, the driver has to throw his keys on the ground. His escape over. Drinking always gives people a false confidence, especially behind the wheel.
Maybe not.
The driver of the car in front thinks he's behaving normally.
Yeah, he didn't do that wheel, very. I think I've just speak to him before he hits something. Yeah.
But the two Merseyside officers have a hunch all is not well. Signal to stop, the driver slows at the next junction.
Thinking about it. Your handset there, Tim. Yeah,
he then suddenly accelerates through the red lights.
Shake, Tango Victor 1 scramble, Townsend Avenue towards Broad.
Calling for backup, the police give a detailed description of the car and two occupants.
70 miles an hour towards around about 2 miles on board.
But the drink has severely affected his ability, and he loses control at the next roundabout.
Can you turn an ambulance out, please? Possible serious injury.
The driver was arrested and banned for drink driving. Amazingly, both youths in the car escaped without serious injury. Around the world, police are hot stuff and usually get their man. But sometimes there's a sting in the tail.
Kurt's held prisoner in a maximum security Big Apple at 9 tonight. Not an actual bit of fruit, I mean like the city, you know what I mean. Escape from New York is your big one. But we aren't done with that fast lane just yet. There's more bad behaviour in police camera action next.